They are from the United States, but they are living in Korea, serving as missionaries here in Korea for the past 7-8 months and a year and a half. So I would like to welcome them to share their own testimonies. But how about this? You share your testimonies, and if I have a question or if I have some comments, I would rather ask you while you're sharing so that people can understand you more. Would that be okay? Who would go first?
Okay.
All right. So Gabi, so her name is Gabi. She will introduce herself now.
I'll introduce myself. Yeah.
So would you please welcome her? Gabi, you can.
So, hello everyone. My name is Gabi. To summarize my life shortly, my family is from Mexico. I was born and raised in Texas, and I went to school for a little bit. I was homeschooled, and I got saved. Even though I grew up in church, I got saved and really made a relationship with God in my senior year of high school. So after that time, I thought, okay, God, I will follow you. And then, okay, God, I will serve you in ministry. And I didn't have a big imagination. I thought, okay, I will stay in Texas forever. I'll go to college. I'll get married. I'll have 2.5 kids. I don't know. I was going to follow the normal family formula. But when I was in college, God really showed me a whole other plan. In my freshman year of college, there was an opportunity to do a missionary trip. So I looked at this book, and it had different places, different work. How much money do you need to raise? When will you go? And they had one opportunity to come to South Korea. So I made the application and the interview, and I was able to come to Korea when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
So I was 4 weeks, and I had never flown on an airplane before. I had never been to another country before. I knew a little bit about Korean culture. I could read the Hangul, but I was like a baby. I didn't know how anything was going to work.
When was that?
2016, the summer of 2016. Okay. Yeah, and when I was in Korea, I visited many different churches. I don't even remember all the places I went to. We were in Seoul. We were in Busan for like 1 day. We were in Daejeon for like 3 days. And Ilsan and Ulsan and Jeonju and lots of places. So I don't even remember how all of it, God used that time. And we did lots of English camps. So we would meet with the children and we would tell Bible stories in English. And I would use the whiteboard and I would draw pictures. I was studying art, so I could draw very well. And I would put the creation story, Genesis. God created the sun, and God created the moon and the stars. God created the land and the animals. And suddenly I realized I can do this. God made this opportunity. I can speak English, and that didn't feel special before. But I can speak English, and people want to practice English, and I can tell them about God. So the next summer, in 2017, I came back to Korea. And I stayed for 5 weeks. And I learned some new things. And the connection between Korea became stronger. The first time I came, I was like a baby, and I needed so much help. And the second time I came, I could do more things alone or with less help. And it was becoming stronger. I like to say building bridges. The bridge was a stronger connection. And the summer after that, in 2018, the Korean students came to my home in Texas for 6 weeks. And they stayed in my house and they helped with my church in the summertime. And it really showed me that God can, even if you have different languages and different cultures, When people are willing to follow God, we're the same spirit. We have the same spirit connecting us. So when I finished college, I started doing more missionary work. I did college ministry in Texas. And the college that I studied and graduated from, they had a very big missionary staff. The college was not a Christian college, but there were college missionaries. So sometimes the missionaries would go to the campus and they would give you free food or free coffee or free lemonade or free peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There was so much free food. And the students would just recognize you. Oh, you're the BSM. I had the sandwich last week. Oh, you're the BSM. I had the tea. And they talk to you. What are you doing here? Why do you do this? Sometimes we would do art with them. We would sit at the tables on the campus and we could do nail painting and just talk together while we paint the nails. Oops.
It's okay.
The nail painting was a really good way to talk to people. You're sitting together for a long time painting your nails. So you can talk about life. How are you doing today? How was your week? And can I pray for you? Sometimes the students would tell me really difficult things. And they're really stressed, or their mother is sick, or their brother got hurt, or I need to go to the doctor. I don't have the money to go to the doctor. Can I pray for you? And these were simple things. I thought it was really simple to just sit there, but people need connections. It's very difficult and lonely sometimes to be a student. It's a blessing to study, but it's still very hard, and people need to feel God's love. So when I finished that work, I messaged the Korean pastors that I knew, and I asked, is there any work for me in Korea? Do you have any work for me? And he said, yes, we want to have a one-year missionary. We've never had a one-year missionary before. We don't know how to do it. Would you please help us learn? Okay, so there's really no plan. But okay, God, we'll do this. We didn't know how to make a visa. We didn't know any of the paperwork or documents. But slowly we would learn together. And then I arrived in Korea in July of 2022. In Korea, you still had to wear your masks. It was a hard time. But God was still doing things in Korea. And I went to a school called TCIS, Daejeon Christian International School. And I helped their program. They were a Christian school. And I would also go to a college campus. And I would do English Bible studies. So I would help the children, but I would also help the college students. And then also just support the Christian staff. The church members, sometimes they were a very small church, and they would get really discouraged. Like, oh, are we really making any difference? But just together, we'll do it together. We can't control the results, but God is doing something. We just obey, and we go again, and we go again. We obey. So after 1 year in Daejeon, I moved to Seoul, and Seoul is much different than Daejeon. Seoul is much louder and much busier and much more crowded. And I do a lot more college ministry again. In Daejeon, I was a lot more focused with the Christian school, but now I do college ministry again. I go to this one campus called Myeongjidae. Myeongjidae, I go 3 days a week. I go on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And I do nail painting there. I learned how to do that when I was in college. And so I sit at a table outside. Sometimes it'll rain and then I have to leave early, but I'll go if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's raining, I'll go and I'll sit in a table outside. I bought a little speaker so I can play my Christian music and more people can see me. And then I painted a little sign from a Daiso picture frame. So I painted it, free nail painting. And then all of my nail polish, I just sit here outside for hours, from 2 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And maybe students will come and sit with me. Sometimes they're very shy. Oh, who are you? What are you doing? and they don't want to sit. But every time, there's always one person. There's always one person who will sit with me. Sometimes it's a Korean student. Sometimes it's a foreign exchange student. I've talked to a girl from Spain. I talked to a girl from Brazil. I've talked to a lady from China and some people from the Philippines. So this connection, we're just sitting there painting nails, but God is connecting these people. I believe it's a miracle every time. They just need to feel some kindness. If you're a foreign exchange student, it's really sometimes very lonely in Korea.
They not.
And so to just see a person smile and invite you to sit down, would you like to sit with me? Sure. They want to sit, and sometimes it just takes 5 minutes and then they go to class. But sometimes they'll sit with me for an hour and we'll just talk. How's your life? What are you doing right now? What are your plans for the future? What are you worrying about? Can I pray for you? This is something, I think it's very simple, but it's also very scary. I'm an introvert, actually. So every day I go and I sit outside and talk to strangers. But this is how God made my connection. I learned to do this, so I know how to do this. So this is something that I can share in the campus. The students, the Korean students, they'll tell me, this is really not the Korean way. But they're so excited to talk to me too. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from America. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? And these are the questions where I can talk about God. Well, I'm here because I'm a missionary. I'm with this small church, and I'm here because it's a long story, but I'm here because everything I told you. And I noticed so many people have a lot of mental health problems. I have a lot of anxiety too. And I know that when I feel lonely or scared, I can pray to God. But other people, sometimes they don't have that. So I wanted to be here for you guys. And my message is very short sometimes, but sometimes it's very long. And that's how I can connect with them and love people on this campus and in this country. This is what I do multiple days a week. And I'm very thankful for it. God uses it every time. There's always one person.
I mean, like you said, you are very introverted. That's what you introduced me. That's who you are. But at the same time, you are doing it outside. I mean, she's doing it all by herself. No other people, just all by herself. Setting up the table, sitting there for 3-4 hours with the little nail polisher. I don't know what they are, but I don't know how powerful those are. I'm not interested, but still, God is using. What motivates you the most? Like, I know that even though I preach every week, I'm anxious. I know how it feels, even though it's just nothing. Why don't I just set up a table and just wait for the people? But there must have been things quite scary, or maybe, how should I put it? Maybe you would think about some other people's opinions, or maybe not your family, but your friends' opinions back in the United States. What are you doing? Are you building up your career? Why are you doing this? So I would like to ask you, what motivates you the most for doing this?
There are some people that think what I do is crazy.
Okay.
But really, the motivation is I care about people because God cares about me. I feel God's love, and that is what makes me brave. I have anxiety, like I had to go to counseling because I was having panic attacks. And it was comforting. I had so much peace when I prayed to God. Oh, God loves me. God is in control of this. I don't need to control anything. The results don't matter because it's always God's plan. So even with anxiety, this is a truth that I have. And so many people around me, I know the feeling of before that truth. That is so scary. And so many people don't have the truth or the peace that I do. So my motivation is to be able to tell people that there's a God who loves you, and He wants to take care of you. He wants you to ask Him for help. And He helps you, always. God doesn't just leave you to struggle alone. He cares about you. So my motivation is always to show that to people. And even if I can't tell them, I can love them for God too. So that's what I wanted to do, in the simple way of just sitting outside.
Even as Christians, when we think of the word missionary, we think of them somebody who's really spiritual and deep in their knowledge about God, so mature, and too much of the qualification to be the one. But you said you're a missionary.
Yeah, I'm a missionary.
What do you think is the qualification to be a missionary?
Okay. I think the very first missionaries were the disciples after Jesus passed away and then rose again. And then He told them, go and make disciples of all nations. Jesus went up into heaven, and these disciples were young adults. And they were not all educated. Some of them just were fishermen. You don't have to be the smartest person, but you have to obey. God gave you something to say. Your life experience, God taught you something. And that is something that you can share with other people. I think the most important qualifications for a missionary is someone who is humble. They're willing to learn. They don't want to control everything. And someone who is brave to obey. It's not easy to obey. You need to be brave to obey. But someone who is humble and willing to obey and do it again and again, anyone can be a missionary if you have the willingness to obey. God sends everyone. He didn't say, go, you pastor. He said, go, you therefore. And He doesn't put a name because it's for everyone. That's my answer.
So do you think these guys can be missionaries as well?
Yeah. Everyone.
Really?
Yeah. You don't have to go to another country. You don't have to go to another country. But go ye therefore to preach to make disciples. It's talking to people. And maybe sometimes it's just serving the community at your school, at your work, your own family. That is making disciples. That is still the work of God. When you try and center God around all of these connections, that is, I think, missionary work.
You two are in your 20s, and most of the people, especially in Korea, if they're in their 20s, they think that they're too immature to be a certain type of, just say, missionary, or to serve the others. Or they think that I need to prepare myself, or I need to prepare not only for the kingdom of God, but also for their own careers, right? So what made you guys to be, what does it mean, the term missionary, what does it mean to you?
There's a verse that I read in the Bible, and I cannot remember the reference, but I was reading it just like 2 weeks ago. My grace is sufficient for all of your things. So God's grace, God fills in the gaps. So I can boast about my weakness because God is strong. If I am weak and people ask, how do you do this? Oh, I did it. No, I didn't do it. God did it. So being imperfect, making mistakes and being human or being scared or not knowing everything, not being perfectly wise is also important. I don't do the work alone. God makes it happen. So you don't have to be perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for your sharing. And do you have any last words that you would like to share to them?
I think also one last thing, prayer is always important. I have to pray before I go to the campus every day. I pray because I never know what's going to happen or who's going to sit with me. But I pray for God's peace every day. And God always answers and gives me peace. So your prayers, pray specifically, God, this is what I need. I need peace today. And then I don't know what's going to happen, but God, you're in control. Help me see what you're doing so I can follow. Something simple like that, but it's specific. Those are things that I do every day, and it helps me have the strength to obey every day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Sleigh. My full name is Ashley, but it's spelled like a little different. So my name is Asleigh, and it's Ashley, but it's like through college, people were like, oh, so like a sleigh. So I was like, yeah, I guess so. And sometime around that, they just dropped the A and started calling me Sleigh. And Sleigh's pretty cool, in my opinion. So that's how I introduce myself. And so my name's Sleigh. I am born and raised in Tennessee, in America. And I have 3 younger brothers and 2 older sisters. So there's like 6 of us, 6 siblings. And so bless my mom. She has to deal with all of that.
How old is she now?
She is 48.
48.
She had us very young.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to share my testimony a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I said, it was just me and my siblings and my mom growing up. We kind of grew up not in the best situations. We like lived in a bad side of town because we didn't have much money. Kind of like, I hate to say poor, but we knew our limits and our funds, and they just weren't the best. And so that's how we lived. And on top of that, we weren't believers.
Oh.
We didn't go to church, anything like that.
Even your parents and grandparents?
Yeah. No. Nobody was.
Were you the first?
Yes. So I'm first person believer, which is very interesting sometimes because, like, especially when I go home or we have family reunions, it's like the big talk of town, like, oh, Sleigh, you're out here in Korea. I'm like, yeah. And so it's just like, but it's a chance for me to spread the gospel a little bit. But like I said, so non-believers. And so we would grow up just, doing what regular kids do, especially like we'd go to a playground or just hang out. I spent a lot of my time with my brothers because, like I said, it was a bad part of town, so I couldn't do too much. But as I was living there was a church which is my home church now, but they came in with school buses. And in the school buses, they would take us to their church and they would offer us dinner, games, and Bible stories. Me and my brothers were like, free food? We're like, okay, we'll go. And so for a long time, me and my brothers were going continuously, and we were like, okay, free food. Okay, you're gonna give us a gift? Okay, then like just more things, like, and I get it was like their chance to like bring us in, but also like, hey, I'm also gonna share the gospel with you. And at the time, it was just stories to me and my siblings. And so we kept on doing that. My mom loved it because she was like, that saves me money. And so we just kept on going. And then there was kind of like a transition for me. I was like, okay, you guys, I know you guys are giving us dinner, but you're also like really all up in my business. Like you're like really asking me questions, you're talking to me. And then like there'd be days where they'd pick us up from school, just to, they had this like buddy program. So then they were like, they would sign up because my mom was working, so she couldn't come pick us up. And so they would have people from church come pick us up, and we're like, okay, this is interesting. Yeah, like you guys are really going out of your way to love on us. What's the catch? Like, what is the issue here? And so that started to make me feel some type of way. And I was like, even at the time telling my brothers, like, isn't this kind of weird? Like they're picking us up, they're hanging out with us. And I don't know, that made me want to ask more questions. And I was like, okay, so why do you guys want to do this? Like, why is this even a thing? And And so I continued to ask questions. There was a lady named Sarah Joseph. She became a mentor. She's even still a mentor to me now. Like if I have anything that is on my mind, I can call her. But she was my lunch buddy. She was everything. She was the main person. Like if there was something we needed from our house, I would call her like, hey, can you like bring us some like cereal? She's like, yeah, I got you. And so just stuff like that. And she just really poured into me and like kept on discipling me. And before I knew it, I accepted God as my Savior by the age of 16. So we first met them like when I was 12, 13, and they stayed with me until I was 16, until I gave my life to Christ. But I was like, okay, I'm a Christian, I believe in God. What now? You know, and like teenager me is like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but what do I do? and my disciple, like Sarah, she was like, well, you go do Bible studies, read your Bible. And so she would read her Bible, read scripture with me. We would go to Bible studies. And I was like, but that's it? Like that, I don't know, like am I supposed to feel anything? And so it was just that constant feeling. That went on through high school. I even kind of slipped and did a few things that weren't very Christ-like. And I know it was definitely just me not understanding what life as a new believer should be. And then it wasn't until my high school year, my senior year of high school, that Sarah sat me down and was like, look, what's going on? Like, what's on your heart? Like, why do you feel like, because I honestly felt like God like left me. I was like, I finally accepted God. I accepted what you told me. And then like nothing happened. And she's like, no, like it's much more than, you're not always gonna feel on fire all the time. You're not always gonna feel good all the time. And I was like, oh. And so that took a big understanding. And so from senior year and even through college, my faith started to grow. Fast forward, I got into college, and I didn't go to a Christian college, but I participated in ministry called BCM, BSU, you guys know the acronyms. And so I got involved with them a lot, and that also grew because I was able to do more Bible studies. I was interacting with more Christian females, more other, just people who were able to pour into me, and I could pour into them as well. And that was very helpful. That's also where a lot of mission opportunities start to happen. I would, do mission opportunities like for on the weekend, and then that turned into breaks, which were like a week, and then it turned into giving my whole summer to go on these mission trips. And I just started to be like, okay, I love this. I love being able to go work with people. I love to go do this. And like she was saying, like, we don't have to come to Korea. Some of the mission trips I were doing was in Tennessee. It was just like in another city or even in my own backyard. That's the saying, like, you can do missionary work in your own backyard, It doesn't have to be somewhere so far away. But like I said, I'd start to grow for the love of mission trips. And even as I graduated, I was actually offered a job with a church I worked in California. So as soon as I graduated, I went to California and I started working there and worked with a church called First Baptist. And I was doing full-time children's ministry, like just little kids, and a few like event programs as well. The pastor there is like best friends with the pastor here, Myung-Soo No, and they kept in touch over time because I think they met like years ago, but they still like called every once in a while. And at some point, pastor in California, started talking to Pastor No here, and sometimes my name came up because Pastor in California would ask, "Oh, Sleigh, what do you do for fun? What do you like to do on the weekends?" And I'm like, "Oh, I like to watch K-drama and listen to music," and I'm like BTS. That's what I like to do. And so he was like, "Oh, I'll tell Pastor No." And Pastor No, he was like, "I have this girl who really likes K-dramas, K-pop." And Pastor No was like, "Ooh, I want to meet her." So Pastor No finally connects with me, and we're talking, we're praying. All of a sudden, he starts to offer me a position here, and he's like, "Do you want to come to Korea?" And I was like, Sure. And so we go through an interview process, lots of prayer, lots of fundraising, and here I am. And I've been here for about 9 months, working at TCIS, Taejeon International Christian School, and it's been great. I work with the boarding program. I meet so many different people and kids, just building relationships with them, helping them with English, or just doing different things. Sometimes I make TikToks with the kids, like dances. So it's just showing that I've come so far from just like being a non-believer to someone who's just on fire for God, like loving on people well. Honestly, it's still, to me, still so crazy when I think about it, because I don't know where I would be truly without God. I don't think you guys would even know who a Sleigh was if God did not enter my life at that age. So, yeah.
How are your family doing in terms of the Christianity and other?
My family is good. I wish they were believers. And it's not that they hate God or anything. They just don't care to know. But I do have many opportunities for them when like here I am in Korea, in a whole other country. So obviously they have questions. And so I get a lot of questions like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Or like when I post something about like working with kids, I'm able to tell them what I'm doing. I think I was telling someone I have a niece she's 16 now. 16. And she is actually like, "Oh yeah, I would love to come to Korea." And then like, she's not a believer, but I'm like, so I tell her like, "Oh, what I'm doing," and she's like, "I think I could do that." And it's just like little moments that to be able to share the gospel. And even with my mom, like she's like, "I just don't understand it," but I was like, but she always says I was always like a weird one. She's like, "You always were the odd one," but she's like, I understand, but I don't understand. So yeah, they're good, but it's definitely a lot of times for me to share the gospel with them.
So you've been here for 8 months, and what future are you expecting? Even though you've been living here for a short period of time, I think that God has put some heart on you towards Korea, towards people here.
Oh yeah.
And do you have any future plan or prayer points? Yeah.
When I first came to Korea, I accepted a year.
Okay.
And so then after that, like within a month, Pastor Noah was like, "Next year." But I was already like by January or December, I already kind of like was like, okay, I need to stay. I need to be here longer. There's still so much for me to do. And it's kind of still the same. I don't know if this is very like how to word it, but I kind of just let God, guide me really. Really, who knows? Like I'm all ready for whatever's next to come. I'm ready and open. So all I know is I'm ready for this next year. And so by when was it? December or January, if God's like telling me, "Sleigh, stay another year," then here we are.
Oh, so thankful for your sharing. Do you have any last words you would like to share with them?
Yeah, everyone's journey is very different. And I always even now, I always worry and struggle sharing my story. But your story and testimony to like God's grace for you is so important. And even if you don't tell everyone, still remember that for yourself, because even now as I'm telling it, I'm like reflecting like, oof, God got me through a lot. And so it's just a good reminder to know how powerful he is.
Thank you.
Can I get the mic?